see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, October 10th, 2021. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the line with us. Hello, Wombat.
Welcome to our 20th episode of all time.
Oh no, more like 420th, more like 450. But we're keeping on. Our guests today are George Brown 2.5. He'll be with us here in a little bit. Dread Pirate Higgs. Hello, Dread.
Ahoy there.
And John Richards, all the way from England. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. Recovered.
Cool. I'm happy you're fine. I'm very happy you're fine.
Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also be talking about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. Wombat, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, why do you have to make it me versus you? Why can't you guys
I can
tell
you.
me?
I can talk about it right now.
The topic is. You're making these walls. It's always us versus them. We're going to be talking about that on this show today. Tactics of narcissism, starting with us versus them, and then whatever else we want to talk about after that. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, I want to throw it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our weekly invocation.
Arr. Qua be me captain, I shall not want. He maketh me to float in salt waters. He steereth me through glassy seas. He filleth me bowl. He steereth me through the states of noodliness for goodness sake. Aye, though I sail through the heaving of tempestuous waters, I will fear not sinking, for thou art with me. Thy mast and thy rudder, they comfort me. Thou preparest a feast before me in the presence of me mates. Thou quenchest me thirst with grog. My goblet runneth over. Truly, pasta and grog shall abide with me all the days of me life. And I shall dwell in the galley of our quab forever.
George, it looks like you're finally set up now. Let's see. Let's do a quick check. Are you there?
Oh, I think I'm here. Am I there?
Yes,
Welcome.
you're
Okay.
absolutely good. Wonderful. It's good to see you. Guys, we're going to be talking. I'm getting some weird internet awards. We're going to be talking about narcissism again today, but specifically about tactics of narcissism. But I would like to check up with everybody and see how you guys have been doing. John Richards, you just survived, like, what was it? Something, it was basically the flu, right? Well, I was telling you about, right?
Coronavirus 2019. Yes.
I know.
I'm a survivor. It's unfortunately, of course, I was vaccinated way back in the beginning of the year. So for me, it was, people who are my age and don't get vaccinated have a 50-50 chance of living.
Yeah.
But in my case, I was vaccinated, so I suffered a mild sort of cold flu type of thing. It wiped me out, to be honest. I had to lay down and sleep a lot. Yeah. And there was a bit of upper respiratory nonsense, but I'm fully recovered.
Isn't that fantastic? I'm so happy to hear that. I really am. That plus another win for science, right?
Absolutely.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's like, hey, I get to keep my friends around.
And yesterday I had my flu jab.
Okay, cool. I got mine. You call it a flu jab?
Yeah, it's a slang term for vaccination.
Okay, Dred's nodding his head. You call them jabs over there in Canada too?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
Jabs and stabs.
Can I please get stabbed and jabbed today? Hey, Dred, how have you been? How was your week so far?
Well, today we're going to be celebrating our Canadian Thanksgiving.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And what's probably not known to most Americans is that Canadians started celebrating Thanksgiving well before the American holiday came into existence. I believe it was 1592 when some guy came over from Europe and landed in Nunavut. And and so they gave thanks for having arrived safely on the shores of Eastern Canada. And,
Wowee. So that's
very
the
cool.
story behind Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I am sometimes appalled with how much American centric my
Right.
education is. Right.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
am. I really am. I have a really long discussion about that yesterday. I'm not going to bring it up again today, so don't worry about it. The guy who listens to the show. But
I would
it
have
is,
something to say.
yeah, I know it's crazy. It's crazy just the things that I'm like, of course it wasn't an American thing. Of course it was somewhere else. You never hear about that in school.
But
And
I did also want to say, I put my culinary skills to the test. So last night I cooked a ham with a honey mustard glaze, which is just divine. And then I made the stuffing today for the turkey, and then I'll be cooking the turkey after the show.
So, silly question: is it the same kind of standards of Thanksgiving in America? If you know the traditions, like the same sort of ornaments, turkey.
But we just go for the food. We dispense with the ornaments.
Got it.
It's just turkey, ham, and Brussels sprouts, and scalloped
Cranberry
potatoes, and that kind of stuff.
Can I come? Can I
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty to go around.
I'm surprised there's no maple syrup involved.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by that.
Yeah,
pancakes.
you're right. No, there's honey, but no maple syrup.
Okay. Joe, Larry, we're gonna play a game called "What's on Your Shirt." What's on your shirt? What's on your shirt? What is on your
It's
shirt?
flowery shirt this time, just flowers and
Flowery
palm
shirt?
trees and jungles.
You know,
Mode.
it's no longer summer. Are
I
you
know.
just gonna? Are you
Yeah,
just
but
gonna?
the high today is supposed to be 81. So
Well, that's
I figured-
global warming. We know we're ruining the planet. It doesn't mean we
Yeah,
got.
well.
There's still fashion clocks that run by the hour, my friend.
You mean like September 1st, that clock?
Yeah. There we go.
And I did switch a little bit before over to flannel, long sleeve flannels and stuff with the cold snaps we've had. But getting back warm again. It's too
It
warm
is.
to be wearing that all day.
It is.
I
it
love
is.
Dred's shirt. And
Yeah. What
it-
is on your shirt, Dread?
Yeah.
Oh, wanted dead or alive, Schrodinger's cat,
Dead
and it's a black
alive.
cat too.
Notice
And
it's
it's a
dead
black
and
cat.
alive.
It reminds
They
me
should
of
say dead and alive. Yeah.
It does. It does.
Dead
I've,
and alive.
Oh, dead and alive. Yeah.
I've seen a brilliant meme on that theme,
Mhm.
which is we've got Saint Schrodinger, the forgotten saint, standing outside the tomb, and the rock is rolled back, closing it.
Okay.
And he's saying to a couple of visiting women, Mary and somebody, he's saying, and if we keep it shut, Jesus is always both alive and dead.
Nice.
I like.
That's awesome.
Nice.
We're gonna throw it up to our own man of the hour, George Brown. We're talking about narcissism today, specifically about the tactics they use. And so,
Well, that's
why are we talking about this?
yeah, we could. Well, before that, I would just wanted to mention what I've been up to.
Sure.
I have, as you may know, I am interested in the effects of destructive people on my own personal life, and kind of delving into that as a personal quest to try to peel the onion and plow through the cobwebs. And so I was doing a little reading on a few people. Jim Jones of the People's Temple
Uh-huh.
and Jeffrey Epstein. And honestly, I got so disgusted when reading about Jeffrey Epstein that I almost couldn't keep reading. And anyway, the topic of the hour about him is kompromat. It's a new Russian term that I think we're going to be hearing more and more about in the future. But I will leave that to rest right here. So that's where I've been putting a lot of time.
And of course,
So what does that term mean?
Compromise.
Well, it's a form of blackmail, but we're used to thinking about blackmail, the goal of blackmail being money. In this way, it's the manipulation of another person
Yes,
to
Which
do
can also
what you
mean money.
want them to do.
Yeah.
see.
yes.
Okay.
Coercion.
It's a form of coercion. And I believe that J. Edgar Hoover was actually running the United States in a way. by doing that to politicians. And there was a fellow in New York City who ran New York in the background, and his name was Robert Moses, and I believe he did the same thing. Anyway, enough of that.
Can I flag up? Can I flag up George's wonderful mixed metaphor? I've never heard it before. Peel the onion and work through the cobweb.
Well, I'm peeling my own onion, in an attempt at my old age to understand myself.
If I peel an onion and I read some cobwebs, I'm not peeling that onion anymore. I was just like, okay.
You're trying to work out your baggage, George.
Yes, exactly.
George, what I love about the story that you just told us right now is that it sounds like there are a lot of different kinds of tactics narcissists use to coerce people, to make them do what they want to do. And it's unfortunately really effective. And I think it leads into the power that how about it? It leads into a direct example of how we give narcissists power. And then ask the question of like, why do we do that? And why are these things so effective? And
that's a wonderful question, I think. And
it's what we're entering this show. And I think it's like, it was a topic that you brought up from yesterday. It's like, why is this so effective? And can we break these tactics down so we know them when we see them?
Yeah.
So, may I say, I would like to offer just one little overview here for a moment, and say that there is a difference between what we're talking about and official definitions of narcissism. And so, let's say narcissistic personality disorder. And so these definitions, and I think this is very exciting, the work that psychologists are doing ahead of the official diagnoses in a way. So the official diagnoses are conservative. They are what people have observed and validated and codified. So it's a scientific approach, and they're tending to be back a little bit, whereas there's very exciting work being done ahead of the official definitions. So we will be talking about what we've observed kind of from the armchair and not the official definitions.
Sure.
We have an expression for this, which must be an American expression, I think, because it refers to a movie. We call this sort of mental coercion, we call it gaslighting.
It's something new that I've been hearing about. Yeah.
Well, that's one.
Now you said it came from a movie. Which movie did it come from? Do you know?
Gaslight.
Oh, there's a movie called Gaslight. Is it just some guy gaslighting another person? Is that literally where that thing came from?
An old black and white movie where this sort of Svengali figure controls a girl to do his bidding by, not threats, but manipulation.
Wow.
That sounds like the premise of V for Vendetta as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, George, what's up?
Well, what it is it is one tactic that they can use, right. and what it is the convincing somebody else that what they know to be true is false, and replacing the truth with the fantasy.
And when you say that, the main thing I hear is when you convince someone that something is not, when you misinform someone, even against their own credit, that sounds like you're taking advantage of someone who doesn't have a good standard of evidence.
Right.
And the funny thing is we are all perceptible to that because no one has a perfect standard of evidence. It's something that you work towards, right? Which means therein lies the problem with how we give narcissists power. It's because they exploit a weakness that we all share, and that it's a tricky thing to figure out true things from false things. And when you have a very clever person who knows how to manipulate information in just the way that you want to hear it, they can completely make you do things that are against your own interests. Larry, what's up?
Well, it's particularly effective, I would think, against people who are religious and that they already follow a totalitarian worldview, and they're susceptible to taking something at its face value as quote gospel.
Adding another dictator to a dictator.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
I would argue if you are already religious, you're already a victim of this. Because there's no reason why anyone's born is convinced that any higher power or anything exists. You're convinced of that when you were
Right.
born.
And
starting
too
from the
young
fact
to
that you're
think
not
about it
convinced.
on your own.
Mhm.
Exactly. When all your authority figures, your parents, and your pastor, your teachers all believe this.
Oh,
you
heck,
will too.
the law enforcement agents, the
Oh,
politicians,
yeah,
all the way up to
yeah,
the
the people who
president.
make your license plates. Yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
everybody.
And
When
I'll
I was
wrap
born,
this-
anyway.
I'll wrap this up into this too, because when you have an authority figure who believes in a God, it makes it very easy for that person to make enemies of other people, because it's like they don't believe in our God. They're not. They don't have our values like
It's
I
the
have.
us and them.
Us versus them.
In group,
Us
in group,
versus
out
them.
group. Yep.
And I feel like in my head, that's the OG path of religion and how it's been so effective in terms of shaping cultures. It's essentially one guy, because it tends to be a dude, let's be honest, on a hilltop or on a church pew or some sort, being like,
Or with
"We
a
are the good
microphone."
people." Yeah, or the microphone. They are the bad people. Let's take their stuff, and everybody agreeing because they're not us. So of
Yeah.
course we should take their stuff.
That's
Like,
right. Yes.
Mhm.
it's such a shame. It's a real shame, but I feel like we fall prey to it even today. If we look on the news, I can't flip through the channel right now. If I were, I don't even have cable, but I know if I did have cable and I turned it on and flipped through the channels, if I had 30 channels, I think that's how many channels there are. It's been a while. I guarantee you, I would at least see 10 narcissists, or mouthpieces of narcissists telling me how the world works, or why some group of people are terrible, or why
Yep.
something terrible is happening in the world. This is why I don't have cable. But like, I don't think the internet's any better, to be honest with you. I know I'm getting a little bit preachy here, but John Richards, in England, right? I would hope that it is not as polarized as it is in the US. Is that the case, or do you feel like things are worse in some other ways?
Well, it's not so polarized here. You are in a ludicrously polarized situation right now in the US, I'm afraid. And we're going that way, which is usually the case. What you do, we follow 10 years later. But what I wanted to mention, a couple of things. One is George brought up Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, he's very topical at the moment because one of our princes, the Queen's second oldest son, is implicated in a case which is being brought against him for, what was the expression? Seducing, wasn't raping. I'm not sure it was that. An underage woman, and he denies.
I'm pretty sure he said he didn't do anything. He looks very trustworthy to me in that interview, right?
Well,
he, was
I
just-
can't.
he was sweating truth beads all around his face. I think that's an upstanding guy.
I can't possibly say anything more about that because I'll be thrown in the tower.
But yeah, it's
The
weird
other
how
thing
stories like that permeates. But yeah,
The other thing I wanted to say is that where do you stop? There's a line, isn't there, between sort of benevolent manipulation and narcissistic coercion for your own mean purposes.
John, I wish you didn't say that. What do you mean by benevolent manipulation? And is there such a thing? Please explain this Venn diagram.
Okay, well, I'll give you a personal example so you can pull me apart. Many years ago, when I had sons, they're now fully grown up and flown away, one of them wanted a gun. He wanted a air rifle. You can't get guns in this country, but at the time you could get air rifles. It's very hard to get even them now, but back then some boys had air rifles and they did target shooting. So I said, okay, I'll get you an air rifle, but remember that the only thing you can do with it is point it and pull the trigger, and that's it. That's the end of the fun. So I was trying to persuade him not to want it. And that's manipulation.
Without telling him not to want it. Without telling him not to want it, or that.
Exactly. And I was trying to persuade him to change his mind about wanting it. But that's benevolent manipulation. We don't want young boys with guns. So the principle behind it was, fatherly. I bought it for him. He pointed it and shot it a few times, and then it's been rotting in the garage ever since.
Okay.
He didn't
All right,
put out
Jeff.
his eye with it.
No, he didn't do any. The most harm he did with it was ruin one of our drain pipes,
Wow.
which is still broken. The rain runs down the outside because there's a hole.
Yeah. I remember the Red Ryder air rifle from
Right.
A Christmas Story, and I think that's what Larry was referencing.
Uh-huh.
You're going to take out your eye with it.
That's right.
Right.
Oh,
Yep.
Right.
But I was going to comment because when Ty had asked John about whether, Britain or the English are divided. I mean, I thought Brexit was a perfect example of that
Yes.
absolute polarization where
Yes.
it was
Yes.
49 to 51.
Wow.
I mean, how can something be that contentious? If it isn't clearly obvious that there's a benefit to the greater, proportion of the population, why does it sit at 51-49? Like, I would say that decision shouldn't happen until it's, 65-35. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just seems that this one vote over the post is just an absolutely ridiculous way, because
Yes.
you disenfranchise essentially half the population
Yes.
when you allow a decision to go through on that basis. It's crazy.
Don't get me on this subject.
Hey, it's almost as if a bunch of narcissists made government.
Indeed.
Based it off of a system that a bunch of Greek narcissists made up.
And
Yeah,
they did
and-
because they're the ones who benefited, because their money is already offshore.
Yes, of course.
And it's only got more valuable, while the rest of us have seen everything get more expensive
Yeah.
or even unavailable, like petrol for the last month.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know it was that.
Yeah,
much.
ours just went up 20 cents a liter.
Yeah.
So
So
it went from
we,
$1.37 to $1.57 a liter. So it's crazy.
Yeah, but we're paying that. Oh no, you did say liter. You did say liter, didn't
Yeah.
you? Because I was thinking you might be gallons, like they
Yeah,
are still.
No.
These
Canucks.
guys are still gallons.
Yeah, we're still doing it by gallons.
Yeah.
That's why all the satellites and spacecraft are crashing,
Yes.
Oh,
because they're
really?
sticking to standard measurements and all that.
Mhm.
Well, the story behind that was in the early shuttle, wasn't it? When one company made part of the rocket to metric, and the other company made it to imperial, and they didn't fit properly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Nope.
That's not cool. What are you gonna do? You got to get your rocket ships together.
Those damn narcissists.
Yeah. So here, my thing is, narcissists have definitely an impact on our society. They have an impact on our government, but it's not just something that's like recent. Like we can't just point to Trump and be like, "Hey, narcissists, we're done here." Like it's systematic, and it's been affecting it since the conception of what government, if we were taking it from Greek principles, it is and was, because even the people that we were basing it off of, their ideas, were probably not the best people in the world either. Like, for example, Aristotle, Plato, known slave masters, known people who write literature on how to own people, does not want women in positions of power, only men, but not just any man, has to be land owning men, and that means rich people. So like, you have a system of government that we're based off of, who are people who are only interested in their own self-interest for the most part, and aren't privy to the consequences of bad judgments or bad calls as the people that they are in control of. And I feel like that is, in my head, an aspect of narcissism. And whenever complications or complaints come up, it's like, well, at least we're not like the Chinese. It's like, whoa, why are you us versing them? Like, why can't we focus on our problems? And why is pointing out another weird system or a different system from a different people in any way helpful to improving ours? Like, can't we work on making a more perfect union together?
Yeah.
I feel like we have to struggle so hard to get through that. We have to struggle through waves of narcissism to get good at anything. But we are at the bottom of half hour. George, I saw you raise your hand. We're going to get straight back to you when we come back to the show. Larry, why don't you take us out? We'll come right back to narcissism and how they're screwing up everything that's nice.
This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm Doubter 5. Let's talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville for a second. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 19th year. We have over 1,000 members now, and we're back to having weekly in-person meetings down in Knoxville's Old City at the Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria out on the patio. We also have weekly Zoom meetings for those who don't live in Knoxville or are old like us and don't want to get out into a crowd and take the chance of getting COVID. So check on our website. That's knoxvilleatheist.org, or go to YouTube or Facebook and check on our pages there. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Well, Bet, where you want to pick up?
Hey, we're leaving mid-thought on a question from George. We're talking about narcissism and why narcissists won't let us have nice things. George, what was on your mind?
Well, following up on what we were talking about in the last half hour, narcissists are master manipulators. And that's the name of the game. I think, to me, there are various characteristics that they have, but to control. And they have many different techniques of manipulation. And to bring up the unspoken name so far, Donald Trump, the thing that perplexes me, the question that I just have not been able to understand the answer to, is why does anybody want to work for this man? Because they should know that he is going to throw them under the bus.
You would think. Much as we read about that happening all the time, you just have to wonder about people like that.
Dread?
And they are so...
Dread has an idea on this. Dread has an idea on this, and this is good.
Well, I was going to ask, because you said narcissists are master manipulators. Are they master manipulators by virtue of being a narcissist, or are they narcissistic by virtue of being master manipulators? Like,
chicken and
egg. Is one kind of causal to the other, and which way does it go?
I have a quick comment on that, Dread. I think no one took Trump seriously until people in power realized that they could use Trump, and then eventually came to the point where Trump was just
a tool,
his own tool that was so good that people were like, okay, well, even if he gets kicked out, we'll still be here. So let's just keep pushing whatever he's doing because it's working good for us now. Mm-hmm. And so I think Trump is very much in the same position as he was, 6 years ago when he wasn't president, where he's just this loudmouth guy who thinks very highly of himself. But now he's lost all political power, and he's still acting the exact same thing, except no one's paying attention to him nearly as much as they were.
Well, and that's kind of my question, is because, certainly there was a large portion of the population that realized he thinks he's a master manipulator,
right?
And in fact, he's just a goofball,
right?
Who is so self-involved that he believes these things about himself when clearly reality does not agree.
And I'll bookend this, and then we get to Dread or George. I don't think he's not a narcissist. I just think he's a terrible one that was probably being used by more narcissists to affect a certain agenda, right? It's like, hey, we're going to go bomb this country, but we don't want people to talk about it. Can Trump say something stupid? Yeah, of course. Just put the camera on him. Great. Trump said something stupid. That's in the news. And meanwhile, no one talks about that, right? George, what do you got?
Well, last week I mentioned 3 psychologists that I recommend that everybody pay attention to, and I'll mention their names before we go today for everybody. But one of them, George Simon, who's a rather conservative fellow, was asked in an interview, why does Trump do this stuff? And his response was, because it works. And that's it. That's but in answer to your question, I think it was Dread Pirate. I think the narcissism came first.
Certainly in his case. Yes.
Yeah. In other words, the narcissism was formed very early as a response to being abused as a child, to being traumatized,
Overlooked at the very least.
And then
what's that?
And then this tendency is then an expression of narcissism, right?
Yes, exactly. And the psychologist Ramani Durvasala, who I highly recommend, her attitude about people like this is that they are responsible for the destruction that they cause. No matter what was done to them in childhood, they own the devastation that they cause in the lives of others.
They own it. They are accountable for it. And as much as I love nature and nurture, I will say this. There are a lot of people who are overlooked growing up. There are a lot of people who are traumatized. They're not all narcissists. So there is something specific to people who go that route that speaks to their character, which makes them accountable for their actions. Larry, what's up?
We were talking about a chicken and egg kind of thing, and George has been asking us why do we always allow them to lead us? I think to run for office, you have to have a very healthy self-respect and a self-thought of yourself, self-image. And I think that a large proportion of the people that would actually get into office would be narcissistic in attribute, if nothing else. Of course, there are a lot of people that run for office to be able to help their fellow man, but that's one of the things about just having a good, healthy self-respect to be able to put yourself forward like that. But a lot of narcissists would definitely have that.
Self-selecting.
Yep.
Or if even the sense of duty, like we've had veterans before who have applied, who I think were, pretty upstanding people who are just thinking like, hey, country, I fought for this, I bled for this. I want to make sure that we can put ourselves in a direction. It's not about me. It's just, I've already come from a position of self-sacrifice, and I'm willing to, if America chooses me, do what I can to continue to do, service to my country. It's like, I can appreciate that. What is it? The Constantine, is that his name? There's a famous Roman
emperor that brought Christianity.
That was Constantine.
Yeah, Constantine.
Okay. Well, then I am mixing up my parables, but unfortunately, there was one who was like a general who was like a farmer, and people brought him in. They were like, "You need a lead," and he led. And then at the end, he's like, "I'm going back to farming, guys. See ya." And he just went back to being a farmer. It's probably not Constantine. I'm thinking of I'll look it up. You guys have a conversation with yourselves. We'll throw it up to.
And he served as an emperor, or as a general?
No, not an emperor, just a general. In the Roman league.
Well, isn't it the premise of that movie with Russell Crowe?
Gladiator.
Yeah, Gladiator. Didn't he want to go back to being a farmer after he finished fighting for the emperor in that war?
I'm pretty sure he just really wanted to rub long blades of grass, like very,
yeah.
I think you're thinking about Cincinnatus.
Cincinnati, yes.
Cincinnatus.
I knew it was a C name, but I didn't know if it was Cincinnati. So yeah, Cincinnatus general, want to serve. Was done serving, went back to his regular life. He threw away a bunch of money just to go back to doing the things that he did. And I'm like, there are people who are like that, and I feel like some of them do ask to be president. Do they get successful and get in? Who knows? I'm not gonna judge.
There's a city named after him in Ohio.
True. I'm sure that was his end goal at the end of the day. It's like, I want to be in Ohio City in a place called America. George, what's up?
Well, I was just, what flashed into my mind was differences in manipulative technique. Hitler's method was to use the Southern minister approach in addressing a crowd, whereas I think Martin Luther King did the same thing, being a Southern minister. It's an equal opportunity sort of a thing, where you start out talking very quietly and rationally and logically, and you build and you build and you build, and you're just screaming at the end. Trump's method is different.
Sorry.
He blurts, he puts out a pepper spray of blurt, and of attack on somebody else. But so that's his MO. It seems to work either way.
So there, yeah, it's a very bizarre thing. George, you made a brilliant point. It's almost as if people are willing to listen to someone, whether they speak fast, slow, loud, or quiet, as long as they're saying the things that they're feeling, right? And not what they're critically thinking about, but what they're feeling. And if that's the case, then it's very easy for anybody who's crazy to amass a very popular fan base if they're just saying things that the fan base wants to hear, regardless of how they're saying it. And I feel like there's
See, I think that people like us want to influence other people with logic, because we are assuming that they will meet us on the logical plane, whereas these master manipulators have it really figured out. They're hitting them in the gut,
right?
And we don't know how to do that.
And, there is something with the way how Trump does speak, or the method of how he speaks. It's very similar to a fast-paced car salesman or a used car salesman who's like, hey, this is the best car in the world. It's an incredible car. It's got a little bit of bunches and patches, but, see, it fell on fire last time. But listen, it's super good now. It's going to be the best car ever. Sure, it explodes every other Wednesday, but this is the car that's going to be reliable. It's going to drive your kids to work. It's like you're saying bad things and you're mixing in with good things, and you're focusing on like huge adjectives that stick, and like the person's more entranced with how you're speaking than with the actual topics of conversation that you're cherry picking from. And unlike, the Southern Baptist approach, where you almost completely circumvent the bad and you just upswell and keep building up, Trump will say things that are absolutely horrendous, but he'll mix them in with, but it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Like, we're all going to get the virus, but you know what? Who cares? We're Americans. We're going to live through it. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be freedom. It'll be freedom. And I'm like, you can't, for the people who are listening critically, it's like, there's no substance here. And you're in fact making me more scared, which makes me listen to you more, because I see what you're saying as a threat, which makes me want to pay attention to what you're saying. Right. And for the people who want to hear what he's saying, they're willing to happily listen to him just to hear the person that they chose was a good person. And so what you end up with is people who are critical thinking paying attention, and people who aren't critically thinking paying attention, and it just continues to build a crowd. And I feel like there's danger in there too. George, what's up?
Well, one thing in terms of manipulation that occurs to me, again, I'm back to Trump, is that if we read a transcript, if we watch him speak to an audience, or we read a transcript of what he actually said, it's word salad. These are sentences that don't compute. They make no sense whatsoever. They contain the buzzwords, but they don't make logical sense as sentences. And I remember there was a reporter from a New Zealand paper who was trying to cover Trump from New York, and he's in Washington, and she said that the reporters have to get together and rewrite what he says because they don't make sense otherwise. So they have to put words into his mouth.
Okay, this is the part where
my point is that he knows how to speak English, because every once in a while he does. And
I don't think he does.
His vocabulary is pretty big. In fact,
it's pretty big. My vocabulary is pretty big. It's the prettiest vocabulary.
Incredible. It's the best vocabulary ever.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's the biggest, prettiest vocabulary that was ever big and pretty. It's the biggest one. But I'm saying
use the best words.
Yeah, he's literally said that. I feel like there's a little hint of sexism in here too, because we just before Trump, maybe the second to last political roundup we did, we had a lady called Sarah Palin, who in my head was what was that, Dredd?
I just a laugh.
Oh,
Sarah Palin chuckle.
We had a Sarah Palin, but here's the thing: if you run Trump speeches over Sarah Palin speeches, Sarah Palin was making full sentences and was not using the same word multiple times in a sentence.
They were silly,
and had punctuation. Yeah, but like, I can see Russia from my house. That's a complete full sentence that begins and ends. If Trump was doing it, it'd be like, Russia, biggest, most terrific place ever. Great place. Would love to live there. Anyway, seeing from my house, I live in a big house, it's gold made of gold. love my house. Great. It's like, what are you even saying? Like, what makes sense in that word? Yet I elected one guy as president and the other one we were laughing at for being vice president. I feel like, as much as we are pointing out narcissists, I still feel like there's a little bit of sexism there too. Anyway, George, what's up?
Okay, statistically, I believe so far, narcissists tend more to be men than women. So why don't we just mention a few women narcissists? And I'm pulling a blank. Maybe Sarah Palin. What, Madonna maybe? Anybody know anybody?
Well, if you go by who takes the most selfies, that's pretty much a lot of them.
You're shooting pretty low. You're shooting pretty low. You're basically saying every 14-year-old and lower.
Well, going on the story of the original narcissist who looked at himself in a puddle, that's the measure.
There's so many narcissists that they put a camera on the front side of the phone as you remember, like, that was probably a boardroom meeting. It's like, we need to put 2 cameras on the phone. It's like, no, why would you do that? You just turn your phone. It's like, no, trust me. we have a demographic that would love this idea. It's like a camera facing, you can see your face in the screen on the reflection. It's like, no, trust me about this. It's going to be brilliant. Like,
this is a high-tech mirror.
Should we patent it? Nah, let's not patent it. Let's let every phone company from here on out just do that idea, because it's so crazy. No one's going to ever want it. It's like, that guy's like in Hawaii right now being like, I had the $1 zillion idea and no one took me seriously. Dang it. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. So narcissists, I feel like you talked about Madonna, who was like a female narcissist. I'm willing to say that they are definitely, as John was alluding to, benevolent forms of manipulation, and then obviously, harmful forms of manipulation, right? And my point would be, I consider Madonna one of like the good forms, because while she was focused on herself, she was doing it in a way where there wasn't really anyone pioneering, the music that she was doing, the messages that she was going for, the Vogue identity. And I'm like, hey, good for you. You actually made music kind of awesome for like a period of time. And I don't have a problem with that. Dredd?
Well, I was just going to say something similar to that. Is that on the register of actors and their behaviors on set, you can differentiate between those who are narcissistic and those who are just self-promoting. There's some pretty bad examples, and I'm trying to think of that one guy who was, you hear stories about how petulant and childish and stomping on the thing and stomping on the ground, and I only want blue, or take all the blue Smarties out of my my bowl, because these terrible demands that some actors and other performers make on their assistants and on other people around the set to sort of place themselves at the center of all attention, whether that's positive or negative.
Sure. And then what do you mean by self-promoting? What would be the alternative to that?
That's like Madonna is. She's got an agent, she's got a promoter, she's got a stylist, she's got, it's about creating an image.
Got it.
And that person may, go to, cancer treatment centers after the fact without telling anyone, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, using their position to do good, but without drawing attention to themselves, you know what I mean? Bill Gates Foundation, for instance, is another case, so there's a lot of, well-known people out there that care about their image, but it's not in a narcissistic way. That's the benevolent sort of aspect to it.
And we were talking about this last time we were talking about narcissism, but Alfred Nobel, creator of the Nobel Peace Prize,
right?
That is literally a guy being like, I need to promote myself. I may have done some bad things, not bad things personally, but people might be using my invention for bad things. Let's see if we can't use it to inspire some good in the world. And we'll make an award that's like, hey, whoever's doing the best things for peace, we'll give you $1 million because I got the money, right?
Yeah.
And let's try to make an example that people can follow, like a testament of chains of people. Won't give it to women. We'll give it to men. It'll just be whoever's the most peaceful person, right? It tends to be the case that nowadays it's giant corporations that are applying for peace prizes, which, you know, is its own thing. But why would you want $1 million giant company? Like, do you really need it? Like, for real? But anyway, I am happy to see people take the route of promotion in that aspect that you're referring to, than petulant, narcissistic tirades, right? Though I will say this, when Will Smith is on set, he brings his own trailer. Like, he doesn't charge the company, the movie company does. Like, I got my own van, I got my own trailer. I'm bringing my family with me. So it's not like I'm going to like clubs or anything like that. Like, I'm a family man.
Really?
I have like a 3-tower trailer that I bring with me. It's like a multi-million-dollar thing, but it's his. It's like, hey, I bought this my own. Like, I already made the investment. Just tell me where the movie is and I'll drive there, or my guy will drive us there, and we will have fun. And when we're done, we'll drive ourselves back to our home. I'm like, I like the idea of like, hey, just invest in being the star that you feel like you are. And instead of having people pull your blue M&Ms out of your bowl, just buy like your own bowl of blueless M&Ms, and you'd be like, I gamed the system. I don't have to display of it. I like the things the narcissists like, but I'll buy it for myself. And I feel like he kind of shortcutted the system there. I think there's something good to say. Larry, final thoughts, and then we can go around. You have any thoughts on narcissism?
No, just what I was saying about it. It just tends that they would want to go into public office because they think so much of themselves and so little of others. But I mean, there are a lot of people that run for office that don't think that way. Look at all the Democrats. But I'm sure every party would look at the other party and think they're just a bunch of narcissists.
Sure. At least some representatives. Hey, George Brown, how do you feel like we handled narcissism in today's show?
I think there's a hell of a lot more to it. And, may I read my list of criteria again from last week? Sure. Okay. And then I want to mention 3 people to pay attention to. Okay. Characteristics. This is narcissistic personality disorder. Grandiosity, need for admiration and recognition, disdain and lack of empathy for other people, sense of personal superiority, establishes abusive power and control over others, fragile ego, intolerance of criticism, and belittles other people. And I added the word seductive.
Before you get to your list of people, I was just going to say that sounds exactly like God.
Well, okay. There's something that's not in there, because a narcissist doesn't like to take responsibility, do they?
Nice.
So that's a good one. They always try to pass the can down to somebody else who is to blame. And that reminds me of a certain son who allegedly took on board all of the sins of everybody and died.
May I give my list of people, please?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. I'm going to do this real slow. If you're of a conservative bent, George Simon. He's a psychologist. George Simon, S-I-M-O-N. Ramani Durvasala, D-U-R-V-A-S-A-L-A, and she uses the handle Dr. Ramani, R-A-M-A-N-I. You'll find her on YouTube. She's an exceptionally good explainer about cluster B personality disorders and narcissists in particular. And Sam Vaknin, Sam, S-A-M, V-A-C-N-I-N. And what's so fascinating about him is that he is a psychologist who is also a narcissist. So he will tell you the story from the inside.
Self-diagnosed?
I can't say. I don't know.
Wow.
He didn't just get a medical dictionary and read it and decide he had all the conditions, did he?
Yeah. So anyway, These people have a presence on YouTube. Simon's own material tends to be very stale because he hasn't updated his stuff, but it's still good.
Cool. All right, John, where can we find you?
Freethought Productions, that's my YouTube channel. And I've just made another video today that is 1 minute and 10 seconds long.
Oh, he's gaming that algorithm.
Yes.
You got a sneak peek about what that 1 minute vid is?
Yeah, it's about atheism, our birthright.
Ooh, interesting. Interesting.
Where do we find it, John?
Freethought Productions on YouTube.
Also, Global Atheist News. I'm digging that channel. I love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. I love it.
Thank you for that. That's my weekly review of how religion impacts humanity.
Well, every single time I cook breakfast, I have that thing playing. It's really good. And by the time I'm done, it's like, this is great. This is a great little update.
Very
I
cool.
love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dread, Pirate,
Yeah.
hey,
Arr.
give me an update. How you been?
Not too bad. I was going to give a name here, and I was thinking specifically about Val Kilmer, the actor, who's been well reputed as being one of the worst actors to work with on set. And this is his quote: "As you know, I have a reputation for being difficult, but only with stupid people." So that really does say it all. But
Yeah.
as far as my content, you can find me on YouTube at Mind Pirate, MINDPYRATE. I stream their show when I'm on it live on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm up to 95 people, subscribers. 5 more
Hey.
is my threshold. Please subscribe.
Very, very nice. And you can find me on Let's Chat. I'm on YouTube, and we'll be here every week. Larry, this atheism thing, I think it's just a fad. Unless if you know what it's about, tell me what you
I
got.
happen to have a book
Nice.
called Atheism, What's It All About? It's available on Amazon. And I would also like to recommend people read Mary Trump's book on Trump himself. She is a trained psychologist and says that he is a textbook narcissist as well. Remember, this show, the Digital Freethought Radio Hour, is available on Apple iTunes, Pocket Casts, Amazon, and podcasts everywhere. Just search for the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. My own content is on digitalfreethought.com. Be sure to click on the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. You can find my YouTube channel by searching for Larry Rhodes or Doubter5. If you have any questions for the show, you can send them to askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org. If you're having trouble leaving religious beliefs behind, you can get help from recoveringfromreligion.org. And by the way, if you're a member of a clergy, a preacher, imam, pastor, priest, but no longer believe in the claims of your religion, there's help for you at the Clergy Project. The link is clergyproject.org. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. This has been the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.